Hi, kids. Welcome to the Randy Karraker Show here on STL Sports Central, presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. Matthew Rocchio, Randy Karraker, and how you doing? You're getting around better than Beau Pribula, I'll tell you that.
Oh, too soon?
3 ligament tears in his ankle. Yeah, it was a bad weekend. Yeah, but at least, and I had to go I was so tired after the Mizzou game, but at least the Blues won on Saturday night. After I was glad that they took care of that. I go to bed because I was so tired, but it was good to get them a victory.
Randy, I don't know how to break this one to you.
What? It was 4-0. So what, they win 8-0?
A lot more goals were scored in that game. Fortunately, every single one of them was by the Detroit Red Wings. The Blues lost 6-4 in that game.
Oh no!
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, somebody, the paper, I guess, late to print that night because I didn't have the score for you.
It's coming from Columbia.
Exactly. Yeah, so they couldn't get that one in for you on Sunday morning. So yes, Blues lose, allowing 6 unanswered to the Detroit Red Wings across the back half of the second period and the full third one. It was bad. It was pretty ugly. Pretty bad weekend.
Yeah. So we will talk Mizzou here. We'll talk Blues. We'll talk a little baseball with the World Series resuming in Los Angeles, even at a game apiece. And whatever else you want to weigh in on here. We got the chat here on YouTube, and what it's here for is for you guys to use it. So that's what we want to do, is we want to chat with you on the old YouTube. And before we do that, I was playing something for Matthew, and I'm going to turn my computer down so that we don't hear anything on YouTube. How about that?
Thank you very much for doing that.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate that.
So let's start with Mizzou, a disappointing 17-10 loss, even though they were not favored in the game. Vanderbilt was favored. Vanderbilt is legitimately very good. Their defense is very good. The Mizzou defense is outstanding. The job they did on Diego Pavia was sensational, but Missouri lost their starting quarterback. Don't think they probably would have won even if Pribula would not have suffered the injury, but it certainly didn't help Mizzou, although Zollers performed well. It's amazing when you look at the numbers. Zollers actually outperformed Pavia in that game, and he looks like he has talent. And now that he's going to get the opportunity to play, Zollers is, with the number ones in practice, maybe what we see in a couple of weeks against Texas A&M is different. He looks like he has arm talent. I'm intrigued to see what he does.
I mean, he's a 5-star. I mean, he's definitely got the arm talent. That's what got him here. If you were watching them, even in preseason and fall and spring and things like that, he was absolutely just gunning it. He clearly has the arm, clearly has the pocket presence, and that's a special thing. You see a guy like Beau Pribula who had happy feet a lot of the game, and heck, a guy like Blaine Gabbert, who was here a decade ago. He was a guy who got drafted in the first round, had happy feet with the littlest amount of pressure when he was in college, and Pribula had that happening as well. So to see a Matt Zollers just stick in there, play after play after play, and then when he was taking off, getting positive yardage and just keeping the ball moving, that was absolutely incredible. And again, to your point, the defense, unbelievable what they were able to put together. But there's a lot of just what has happened from Mizzou, which is they make a lot of mistakes, and they seemingly can't get the calls to really go their way in the big moments, and all of that adds into just a bad loss. And listen, I see your point about Zollers now getting to run with the ones, but my issue now is that Texas A&M gets 2 weeks to prepare for a true freshman quarterback, as opposed to him getting thrown into the middle of a game when Vanderbilt doesn't know what's coming. It's completely different.
Well, and Texas A&M might be the most complete team in the country. It's one of the top 3 teams is the most complete team, right? Ohio State, Indiana, amazingly, or Texas A&M. To me, one of those 3 teams. I thought Miami earlier in the season, but they just haven't shown me an awful lot lately. I think those 3 teams, and the AP people have it right, are the 3 best teams.
Yeah, I think Ohio State is a little bit better than both Indiana and Texas A&M, in my opinion. But yeah, I think you're probably right.
All right, let's talk about some of the big plays in this game. The second quarter play, we look at when Pribula got hurt, but what we tend to forget is that the Judice tripping penalty was on that play. So he goes down to the 1 yard line, and Mizzou gets the penalty, and actually he got hurt a little bit later, but goes down to the 1, and rather than having the ball first and goal at the 1 yard line, Judice takes the tripping penalty. So now you're at the 36 rather than the 1 yard line in the second quarter.
Yeah, I mean, listen, in that one, I know people want to bitch about it, but I mean, if we want to compare it to the other tripping call, there's no question which one was more egregious. That one, I get it. He raises his leg up a little bit. It's a bad, it's not a call you want by the book. It's actually the correct call, I think. It's a crappy call, but then just to not, when you get actually down to the goal line, to not just pound it with Ahmad Hardy all 4 times, in my opinion, is a mistake. Also, I tweeted it at the moment when they were coming out on 4th down, and this is before the injury happens, but my thoughts were simple. I understand how in every other game situation you go for it on this 4th down, but with a bad kicker and with a game that's probably going to end 13-10, which is what my prediction was in the moment,
right?
I want those 3 points. And again, I understand that it's against the analytics and it's against what Drink does and all that stuff. I understand that. But I think one of the few things that I agree with the people who are anti-analytics is that too often decisions made now, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, get lost in the muck of the analytics when the moment and the human nature factors should make the decision quite clear. And in my opinion, take your points and keep on rolling would have made sense. I also, if I'm going to run the 4th down, I don't give it to my quarterback.
Well, so I'm sure that the coaching staff came into this game because of Pavia. We're thinking 7s, not 3s. We need touchdowns, not field goals.
I get that. I respect that opinion. It's completely legitimate. I'm not saying I'm right, but that was my thought process in the moment. And then when you give up 3 points again later because you do not have a good kicker, because for some reason you have a true freshman as your backup, and for some reason your starter was trying to make a tackle against Central Arkansas while you were up 40 points, you lose 3 points there as well, and the game's entirely different because of it.
Right. So after the first drive of the third quarter for Vandy, the interception gives the ball, Mizzou the ball at the 20. On first down, Coleman on a little jet sweep takes it down to the 10. And then you got a 1st and goal. Hardy for 7. So it's 2nd and goal at the 3. Hardy for 1. 3rd and goal. So after a timeout, you want to give it to Hardy again on 3rd down?
I do.
And instead, Pribula throws it short left to Olabode. And is that the right pronunciation? Olubide.
I think you're supposed to hit the G, but I've been bad about Olubide. I think it might be it, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
I mean, Grant, we're talking about that. I can't.
So now you're 4th and goal from the 2-yard line, and maybe
that's when that's when you boot out and try to get Norfleet in the flat as opposed to 3rd down. When they bought in on the 3rd down run, they're looking for something up the middle. You certainly don't go up the middle with Pribula, with some kind of read option kind of kind of look that they gave. It was an odd play call. I didn't like. I mean, the 3rd down play call, even like just saying like, do you want to run it again? I don't know if I really liked that play call in that moment either. The entire sequence, in my opinion, was poor. But again, I mean, we're talking about Kirby Moore and Eli Drinkwitz.
Well, but I understand where you're coming from, though, and I tend to agree. You go with that jumbo package with the 4 tight ends. Ahmad Hardy is one of the best running backs after contact in all of college football. So you go with that package. You give Hardy the ball, and then if you don't get it, you tip your cap to Vanderbilt, and you say, okay, you got us. You out-physicaled us. And they still might have done that. But instead, Pribula gets his leg broken. You turn the ball over on downs, and that was a huge momentum play in the game.
Yeah.
And then the next drive for Mizzou, you drive down to the 21-yard line, and Meyer misses the field goal. And on the very next play is when Young had the 80-yard touchdown run. So in this condensed period of time in the 3rd quarter, Pribula gets hurt. You come back. And Zollers drives you down to a field goal try. Meyer hits the upright. They get the ball. Vanderbilt does at their own 20. Young with an 80-yard touchdown run. And all of a sudden, you've got a 10-3 game.
And I don't want to be, the guy who just blames it all on the officials, but a couple pretty egregious holds that don't get called on that play and other plays. And so, listen, holds are always going to happen. So fine. Let's not talk about that one. That's a waste of time. But to one, miss the offsides call on the defense and not give the Tigers their free play earlier in the game. And then while we're talking about nose tackles in the center position, to is that
I think we have pass interference on the last play.
Oh, Jesus Christ, that he is holding his jersey, at least defensive holding. And then you, but so as we're focusing in on the just let's stick to there, the bogus ass tripping call on Tollefson late in the game as
brutal.
When he trips over his own player's feet and the defensive player keeps coming and trips over him and they call a tripping call on him. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that call. And they're getting hosed over here. And I hate that stuff, but man, that one was some crap in my opinion.
I'm with you. And we will show you what we think was pass interference. I just emailed it to you so we can get it up. But yeah, that was the Tollefson tripping. I don't know what the officials were thinking there because I felt the exact same thing. And then after the touchdown run, after the 80-yard touchdown run, then Mizzou Roberts fumbles. So Vandy gets the ball at their own 44-yard or at the Mizzou 44-yard line. Pavia incomplete. So you've got 3rd and 10, you think, but you've got a roughing the passer penalty. So now it's 1st and 10 at the 29, and then this is where Pavia turns into Pavia.
Okay. Again, it's another one. It's like by the letter of the law, his arm's up a little high, but it's like he's rushing the quarterback. He's rushing through the tackle. He's reaching for the quarterback. He doesn't grab face mask. It's like his forearm goes across his head, so that's roughing the pass. I think that's a soft call, though.
But if my quarterback had that happen to him,
I don't think so.
I would say that's roughing the. Anytime you make contact with the head of the quarterback, the
tackles are 6'7". If I bull rush a tackle into the quarterback and I'm reaching through the guy's shoulder,
intent doesn't matter.
I know
it's intent doesn't matter. If you make contact with the head of the quarterback, you're in trouble, and that's exactly what happened. So then. Pavia takes over, and that's when they get it down to the 10-yard line with the first down, and then ultimately Mizzou gets a pass interference, and it just kind of fell apart there, and they get the touchdown. So it's 17-10 after the Pavia 1-yard touchdown run. Now, Zollers, I thought looked really good under the circumstances. And I don't know what his arm talent is. I've never seen him play. Obviously, you would like to throw the ball deeper into the end zone to try the Hail Mary. That being said, I think that Kevin Coleman the Jr. was interfered with on that play. And I think that was another of the egregious calls. We can blame officiating all we want, but the fact of the matter is, and Dick Vermeil always told his team this after he took over. He said, look, you've got to beat a couple of teams. You've got to beat the other team, and you've got to beat the officials. Mizzou had to play a perfect game, and they played far from a perfect game against Vanderbilt. Did they get screwed over a little bit by the officials? Yes. Was Vanderbilt better? Yes. At the end of the day, Vanderbilt was a better team. Vanderbilt had beaten LSU the week before, and they were simply a better football team. So if Mizzou would have won that game, and I would have loved to have seen Mizzou win that game, but I don't think that if Mizzou would have won, that they were the best team on the field on Saturday. I think Vanderbilt was the best team on the field. I think they just have a few more playmakers than Mizzou does, and especially when Mizzou lost their starting quarterback, and I'm not so sure about him. I really think that Pavia was a better player than either Pribula, or even though Zollers outplayed Pavia, I think Pavia was the best offensive player on the football field on Saturday. So I just think, not in terms of the statistics, but if you were just going to pick a player to win college football games for you from that game, offensive players, who would you take over him?
Ahmad Hardy.
Yeah, well, see, here's the
averaging
thing.
5 yards a carry.
Ahmad Hardy has been stopped by lesser teams. Ahmad Hardy was great when they weren't playing great competition. So was Pribula.
Both defenses were more. My thing is that both defenses were more impressive throughout the game. But I certainly didn't walk away with that game thinking that they were the why am I blanking on the name? Vanderbilt was the better team. I'm going to throw up. Usually if you ever see this, you how bad did your team get beat, and it sees how much more, how much you actually got outplayed. And if you remember that in the Mizzou and Alabama game, by this metric, Mizzou actually just barely outplayed Alabama. It was very, very small. Here, as we'll zoom in to the very left of this diagram, we will go to Missouri and Vanderbilt, where you can see right there over to the left, Missouri outplayed Vanderbilt by a significant margin in that game. Not necessarily that Missouri was playing great, but because of how dominating their defense was completely shutting out, for the most part, Diego Pavia's, explosiveness and playmaking. That's one of my big things that I'm going to lean on. And I think that Mizzou was the better football team. But I think the issue that we're dealing with the Missouri Tigers, as we have dealt with many times this season, is the coaching staff is failing to put the team in the best position to succeed and to win, whether that be the play calling, whether that being the fact that, again, for some reason you have the worst special teams in the SEC, at least arguably of the 14 legitimate teams in this conference. You have the worst special teams unit. And your depth was bad, which goes not only to the special teams problem, but it also goes to the recruiting overall. Like, this is coaches failing to set the team up for winning, despite the fact that they were the more talented roster on that field in Nashville.
And I don't, number one, every team has a budget now. Every team has payroll limitations. It's not any different than baseball and the Cardinals having payroll limitations, although the payroll limitations are pretty high for the University of Missouri. But here's the thing. A player is willing to go to an Alabama, a Georgia, an LSU to be a backup. We still haven't reached that point where a player will come to the University of Missouri to be a backup and accept it. When you go to Alabama, if a player gets hurt or if a player graduates, you have a chance to step in, play on a really good team, get noticed by the NFL, get drafted high. Mizzou's had a couple of those guys, obviously, Armand Membo, Darius Robinson, the two cornerbacks that got taken a couple of years ago, Luther Burden. You've had a lot of high draft choices, but those players all got playing time over the course of their career. Robinson, Burden playing as freshmen, Membo playing a pretty substantial amount of snaps. So when Missouri reaches that point where they can build that kind of depth because good players are willing to come here and sit behind a starter, I think that they'll have something. But right now, you don't have that across the board. Sure, you have it at defensive end. You don't have it at linebacker. You certainly don't have it in the secondary. You may or may not have it at quarterback. I don't know that we didn't overestimate Beau Pribula. When you look at the 7 touchdowns and 1 interception in the first 3 games, and then the 4 touchdowns and 6 interceptions in the games he played after that, I question Beau Pribula's ability to go against upper-level competition. And then the depth on the offensive line certainly has shown itself to not be great. When Caden Green went down, Ahmad Hardy's numbers went down. And all of a sudden, Pribula started seeing a lot more pressure. So I think Mizzou has another step to go before we can say they are elite. And one of those is what you brought up. They just don't have the depth that other teams, blue bloods in the SEC have.
Yeah, the issue here, though, is that we're talking about kicking depth, which costs you.
And this guy was rated the number 13 kicker in the country. All right, Robert Meyer was rated as the number 13 kicker in the country coming out of high school. He was a preferred walk-on at Mizzou, and yeah, you'd love to have a freshman that nailed every kick, but he doesn't. And they didn't plan on him kicking this year. That he is because Craig got hurt. But if you tell me out of all the kickers in the United States of America in high school that I've got the number 13 guy, I'll take my chances with it.
Was that on like 247's rankings?
Mizzou has, if you just go to Mizzou's website, where his bio on the Mizzou website.
Yeah, I saw that. I was listening to I saw a clip today from our good friends at 101 ESPN, who put out Actually, it wasn't put up by 101. It was put up by a Mizzou fan I know who had a clip of McKernan talking about this kicker and saying that Meyer, that 13th ranking for Meyer was on like a very specific list and not on like the national lists that everyone else was on, essentially. So they might have been being a little bit picky and choosy on where they're finding lists.
If he's in the top 50, I'm okay with it.
That's fair. It's because Tim's point was, and I think this is interesting, and when you look at their depth chart, this it jumps out as just nobody else in the SEC, or at least the top like 10 SEC teams. No one else would have been stuck with a true freshman kicker who was a preferred walk-on if their first kicker would have gone down. Everybody else in the SEC had a little bit more depth at the kicker spot. That was Tim's point. And I'm
not sure about that.
I think it's
there are schools that won't give scholarships to kickers in the SEC.
In the top 10 schools in the SEC? Yeah. Which ones? That seems like a bad idea.
So
because then you end up in situations like this where you're and it was leaving 3 points on the field.
I don't know Chris Saylor kicking.
That's what. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So that was apparently he runs a camp and he ranks some of the kickers.
Yeah.
But
he had Meyer as his number 13 kicker.
Some of the big name rankings, apparently he wasn't as high. But listen, at the same time, like this seems like a petty thing to kind of talk about, but I think it's fair though when you're talking about a guy making a top 10 paid coach in the SEC, and we're talking about the big issue with Mizzou is that they can't just get over the hump. It might seem small, but little things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Are the reasons is one of the things that can get you over the hump sometimes. Making the right decisions on the back end, on the margins and things like that. This sounds like a Cardinals conversation again. That can be the difference between winning and losing. When the difference between the playoffs or not is 11-1 or 10-2, that's a pretty material thing.
Mm-hmm. So Harrison Mevis was ranked the number 8 kicker in the country. I don't know who did that ranking. Let's see what Jeff Brockhouse was.
I don't remember that name. Jeff Brockhouse?
Yeah, he was a Mizzou kicker.
Oh, wow.
He was pretty good. Kick for the 49ers. I don't have his national ranking. I wonder where Greg Zuerlein. Let's see where Greg Zuerlein was ranked when he came out of high school. I'm guessing it probably wasn't too high, right?
But I mean, are we saying that none of the rankings? I mean, are we saying that kicker rankings don't matter compared to every other position?
No, I'm just saying that I've never seen the guy kick. So, I don't know of Chris Saylor kicking. I'm not here to criticize him. I don't know that his rankings are any better or worse than 24/7's.
I feel okay. I mean, I feel like the overall consensus recruiting network in America probably has some clout that we can lean on, right?
So
again, I don't know any other prospect that we talk about that we talk about on 24/7. But
we had a kid here.
Give him a shot.
Jack Farron. Kicked at Parkway North, was the number 1 kicker in the country. Went to Air Force, never did anything. Transferred to Mizzou, never did anything. Tucker McCann was a top 5 kicker in the country from from O'Fallon.
Yeah,
right.
But I mean, usually the point is when we talk about rankings and things like that, it's been proven that it doesn't guarantee you wins, but it is a fair litmus test across 3 and 5 year like rolling averages, if you want to talk about that, as saying whether or not your program is successful. And that's the only point is there's not a lot of other top SEC teams that would have been put in this situation that the Tigers have been put in.
So you don't think that so basically every other backup kicker in the SEC is an experienced guy that's not an underclassman?
A lot of them are. I won't say everyone.
So are they getting?
I won't say everyone.
Transfers.
They've gotten some transfers. Yes.
Okay.
And listen again. This is it's a minute thing, but again, that's been the difference. That could have been the difference between them. Winning this game. It could have been heck if this game's different because of the Pribula injury. When we look at Oklahoma or Texas A&M, a field goal, 40, being able to kick a 45-yarder in the waning seconds of a game can be the difference between being in the playoff or not.
Yeah. He's Meyer is 9 of 12. This year. I've seen worse in the NFL.
Not this year with the damn
I got to see Neil O'Donohue kick.
Bottom line, it was a rough game in a lot of ways, and now it's a freshman quarterback leading you against 2 very big games against Oklahoma and Texas A&M.
Another question, and I am an Eli Drinkwitz fan, and I think that he's great for Missouri, and I think he should be here. Based upon your belief that they don't have enough depth and they're being poorly coached, should Drinkwitz be the coach?
I didn't say they. I did say they didn't have enough depth. I don't think they're being poorly coached.
Well, you said they're making bad calls and that the coaching staff isn't properly utilizing the talent.
Yeah, I think when you watch the way the Tigers have played, how they played against the last 3 weeks, I think it's fair to say that they're not putting their players in the best position to succeed. He should be, yes. I think overall, when you look, the reasons that Eli Drinkwitz is a successful college football coach is because he's a team builder, both as a like when it comes to recruiting and things like that, but also when you watch the speeches, when you see the videos from inside the locker room, clearly his players like to play for him. So from that aspect, he's a very good college football coach. I question, and I think a lot of Mizzou fans do question some of the X's and O's decisions going on with the Tigers this year.
And I would tell you, unless you have been a coach, I trust their X's and O's abilities more than yours.
And I think that's completely fair. But you agreed that some of the play calling situations, especially in that situation down in the goal line, were a little questionable.
As Mike Martz would tell you, if they work, they're not a bad call.
But I try never to agree with that. And I try to always look at things from what I was thinking of in the moment before after the fact. And that's why in the moment, I and a lot of other people watching the game were questionable of those play calls in the moment. It's not just a results-oriented thinking.
So that being the case, so there have been instances where a team has scored a touchdown and you say, what a terrible play call.
Yes.
Okay.
It's anytime the goal line fade works.
Okay.
That's
you just don't like the play.
Anytime the goal line fade works, I'm like, they could have come up with something a little bit more efficient than that.
All right. Samuel Howell, let's see how they prepare with the bye week. Yeah, they did that against Alabama. So a Kroenke hater. Austin Seibert, NCAA point record, Belleville West. I think his brother is or was at Lindenwood. Lindenwood's punter and backup kicker, by the way, is Adam Vinatieri's son. Jeffrey Mainstar. I always thought Mizzou should be able to hit more passes with sizable gains because teams jam the box to stop our running game. Maybe Zollers can do that. He certainly didn't look frightened. And I think that's one of the things I wonder about the arm talent of Pribula. And I think the statistics would bear this out. Their lack of desire, apparently, to throw the ball downfield with Pribula.
Yeah, my biggest worry with Pribula, and I've said it before, is just that one deep shot to Speedy Johnson in the first game of the season was going to be the only time they really hit that pop. And unfortunately, up until the injury, that has been pretty much true. When you talk about play action fake, there was a lot of passes where Zollers was able to hit a zone beater over the middle deep because he got the linebackers to step up with a play action fake. Obviously, that was like one possession, because after that it was the time game, and no longer could Zollers really could they really buy fakes out of the run game as much. But you get those run fakes going, you see how patient he is in the pocket, lets the play develop, lets the receiver get downfield. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to keep seeing more play action shots. And again, with his arm strength and the running game that Mizzou has, that's really going to be the only way I can see them beating Texas A&M, is that they're going to have to pull off a couple of those.
Samuel, how does Mizzou have a soccer team? The guy at SEMO hit a 60-yard bomb, and let's get the next Brandon Aubrey.
Yeah, so if you saw that, you also saw
how he was rated as a football kicker.
There you go.
Out of high school.
The College Game Day kid absolutely hammered the kick, and then there was also some other fans in the stands who, during a break, both hammered kicks as well. So we know there's at least 3 people in Nashville who can hit a 45-yarder. So maybe
Did he hit a 40-yarder, 45-yarder earlier, Meyer?
To start the game, that first one of the game?
No, I mean during the season.
Oh, I think so, yeah. That's as long.
So, okay.
No track.
Anthony C. At least Gary Pinkel got Mizzou to 2 SEC championships and won a road game against a ranked opponent. Drink is 24 and 22 in conference play, 0-11 against top 10 teams, and 6-13 against ranked opponents. Gary Pinkel was one of the great coaches. He's a college football Hall of Famer. Gary Pinkel was a great coach. And I'm not going to say at least Gary Pinkel. Gary Pinkel was fantastic. And if he would have desired to go to Michigan and taken that interview and taken that job, probably would have won a national championship there.
I referred to him today on the morning show because Cam was like, would you take Drinkwitz or Pinkel to be your coach tomorrow if you had to choose? And I'm like, well, I'd take Pinkel almost every single time.
Here's my thought about Pinkel. And Pinkel was college teammates with Nick Saban. And so they were always tied, and they both were Don James disciples. I truly believe that if Gary Pinkel would have gotten the job at Alabama, he would have done what Saban did there. And if Saban would have gotten the job at Missouri, he would have done what Pinkel did at Mizzou. I think they both maximized their programs. I think they both maxed them out. And the maximum, the highest level, the ceiling for Mizzou is not what the ceiling for Alabama is, because players want to go play for programs that have won championships before. I think that Gary Pinkel, and you can bear this out statistically, was every bit the coach that Nick Saban was.
And you can tell me that Al Ferraro and Dan Devine are better coaches than Gary Pinkel, but my comparison was essentially like, especially when talking about him or drinks, I was like, I mean, Gary Pinkel's like Jim Brown, and like that if he was alive 30 years later, he would be just as good of a coach. He would just be better at doing the stuff that Drinkwitz is good at. The recruiting things that Drinkwitz is good at, the playing the game, the NIL. Yes, probably right now because he's just like Saban. If Pinkel had to get into it now, he'd hate it. And I think he'd push like Pinkel. He'd be like, why are these kids having conversations about money and not developing as football players?
I remember doing events with Pinkel. Well, it was before he left, so it was more than a decade ago. So this is 2013, 2014, where he was talking about how we have to pay football players. And he was really fired up when the NCAA said, okay, you can give him a stipend.
I love that. But my point was essentially just calling him Jim Brown is like the same way that like it didn't matter what era Jim Brown would have played in, he would have been great. It didn't matter with the era that Gary Pinkel coached in. If he was coaching Mizzou right now, they'd be at where they're at or even better.
I think Pinkel probably would have been the kind to hire a GM.
Yeah.
Whereas Eli Drinkwitz is not. But he did talk about, hey, even before his career was over, Gary Pinkel was talking about going into living rooms, and he's going to have a cap guy, and the player's going to have an agent, and there's going to be every seat in the living room is going to be taken up by somebody because the player is going to get paid. So Gary was ahead of his time in this regard.
And that's why Samuel Howe, I completely disagree. He might not have got the recruits. I think he absolutely would have, in maybe in a different way than the way Drink's doing it. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Pinkel would be he would be absolutely killing the transfer portal.
No doubt.
He'd be getting these guys who were successful at smaller programs. He'd be like Signetti. That's it. I mean, Gary Pinkel would be like Signetti in Indiana. That's exactly. I mean, that's all you have to do to imagine what would Gary Pinkel be like in this era as a great football coach. He'd be Signetti.
Yeah, except without the ego.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah. But I mean, again, we're going to talk about Heisman odds later. Like, find me the difference between the current top guy in the Heisman and the next four behind him.
Yeah,
he's a transfer.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go. Hey, we want you to be ready on December 1st because DraftKings is ready to go. The wait almost over as DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming to the Show Me State, and you can sign up today. Get $300 in bonus bets when DraftKings launches on December 1st. All you need to do is download the app and place a $5 bet. And whether it's a college game, whether it's a hockey game, whether it's a pro game, you're going to have everything you need to elevate your game day. And when DraftKings does go live in Missouri, you're going to be betting with the sportsbook app that's trusted by millions of people in Illinois, in Oklahoma, all over the place. It's safe, secure, and has fast money withdrawals. And they do an amazing job for you. If you really want to become invested in the game, if you want to change the way that you watch sports, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code STL Sports to grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when DraftKings goes live December 1st. That's code STL Sports right there on your screen in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos.
One last thing on the Mizzou game, because you sent me this picture, and that is, here is the potential defense. I don't know where the ball is right now, so I don't know if this would have been defensive holding or DPI. It's in the air. So this would have been DPI. There is Kevin Coleman. And yeah, that looks like a pretty nice handful of jersey there on the back of his back, on the back of his shoulder, I should say.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking is that, and this is exactly where the official is too. How the official missed this is beyond me, but obviously they did. But if that call is made, 1st and goal at the 1 on an untimed down, and then you could have run Matt Zollers up the middle.
I didn't like the last thing you said there. That was mean.
Sorry.
That was mean.
Okay.
All right.
What would you have done? What do you think they would have given it to Hardy? Then?
Hardy
had
no.
not
Hardy
played
was
much.
Hardy was
he was out.
Was Hardy out at that point?
Well, he wasn't playing much, right? Roberts was getting the carries.
Yeah, I think Hardy was hurt. Was he?
I don't think he was hurt, but he wasn't seeing as much action. I wonder what the play would have been, because the tight end of Norfleet was out too.
Yes, yeah, but you got a bunch of big. I mean, that's only if you're trying to, run that play action thing. You got a bunch of big ass tight ends, including Jordan. I'd say I would have said, yeah, absolutely run the ball. All right, fine. We'll move past that one.
The Blues play the Penguins tonight with a chance to hopefully redeem themselves after blowing a 4-0 lead Saturday night in Detroit. How this happened, I have no idea. Joe Vitale on the broadcast and on the telecast said that the Red Wings had a bunch of puck luck. When you come back from 4-0, I love you, Joey, but that's not luck. That is one team playing bad and one team playing well. And I think it was more Blues playing bad and just kind of quitting after they got ahead 4-0. And I don't know how Jim Montgomery and his staff fix this, because it looks like when I'm watching, and tell me if I'm wrong on the chat, it looks like when it got to 4-2, there was kind of a level of disinterest on the part of the Blues. It's like they didn't play their game. And when I'm told how the game should be played, what I should see when I'm watching, I wasn't seeing any of that. When Doug Armstrong, a few years ago, when he fired Mike Yeo, said that his players were a bunch of independent contractors, that's what I saw on Saturday night. I thought that they were playing for themselves. I didn't think that they were playing within a system. They weren't playing, as Darren Pang always said, you should be able to see 5 guys together going up and down the ice. I didn't think that they played a connected game after they got ahead, and they just fell apart, and it was awful. It was just, and it's not Jordan Binnington's fault. Some of it is. And yeah, there were a couple of deflections, but I don't think that Detroit came back and won that game because of puck luck.
Yeah, I think that's just, listen, the defense is a problem. I refuse to believe that Jordan Binnington and really just Joel Hofer have fallen this far from grace. I refuse to believe that. So I have to believe that the Blues having like a 12 goals above average, which is 32nd in the league right now, I truly believe that has to be a failure of the defense from the forwards and the defensive lines. And maybe you're saying, so I don't know what it is. I'd rather believe that the 18 other players are failing than Hofer and Binnington, if somehow, or at least Hofer has just completely fallen off a cliff. I don't know why. I feel like it's easier to buy a collective failing of 18 people having to be connected by a string than it is just the singular failing of one player. So that's where I'm leaning right now. But tonight's going to be an interesting one because Hofer's going to be back in the net. And listen, Jim Montgomery talked about why, and we outlined very clearly as to why, ladies and gentlemen, it does not matter, at least for now, how badly that Joel Hofer's playing. They cannot play Jordan Binnington game in and game out, especially in a back-to-back situation like tonight where one of them's home, one of them's away. They cannot afford to play Jordan Binnington both of those games with everything that's going on, the condensed schedule, the fact that he's playing in the Olympics, so on and so forth. So tonight's going to be huge because not only do you have Hofer in there, but at least 2 of those 18 players in front of him are going to be different in that Robert Thomas is out, Jake Neighbors is out, Alexei Torpchenko is back and in, but also Alexander Texier is in. I'm nervous.
I think that's a reasonable approach to have. Being nervous about this one is very reasonable, because the Blues have not played well. Now, Pittsburgh is not what they were. This is not the same old Penguins that we've known for the last decade and a half with Sidney Crosby. That being said, they're hungry too, and they're on scholarship. So I would think that the Blues need to play hard. They need to care. And when I guess when I say they're disinterested, that means it looks like they just didn't care an awful lot the other night. They need to play with some vim and vigor tonight. And last week when Montgomery pulled Hofer from the game,
vim and vigor. I just sometimes when you pull out phrases that I haven't heard since a 1950s NFL films compilation where the guy talked like this,
vim and vigor. You got to play with some vim and vigor out there tonight.
It's like that in a World War II documentary. The only 2 times I've heard vim and vigor referred to.
It's like a 1950s newsreel.
Good
right?
Lord.
But anyway,
They hit the beaches.
yeah, I think that they've got to play with urgency, desperation, vim and vigor, whatever you want to call it. They've got to play hard. And I was going to say last week when Montgomery pulled Hofer from the game, he was asked what he said to him during the TV break when he went over to him. And he said, what I said is, we saw it last year. You're a really talented goalie. We know that you can play, and we're going to need you. And I would think that little confidence boost, hopefully, for Joel Hofer. I was about to call him Al Hofer, the old DJ. For Joel Hofer, I would hope that he understands that not only is he capable of playing in this league, he showed that last year. If you don't have physical ability, you don't have the year that he had last year. And the Blues do need him. And especially since they lost Colton Ellis. The Blues need Joel Hofer to perform at a high level, and hopefully that starts tonight.
This is a great question, I think, from High Definition. The way the Blues are playing currently, this could get a coach fired, but Monty's not getting fired, so what do you do?
Well, number one, they played a 10th of the season, right? You've got 10 8-game
We've seen that.
segments.
We've seen that get a coach fired in the NHL before.
Yeah, but not with the Blues.
No.
Unless you were the guy who was the guy before the
Mike Yeo?
No, the guy before Hitch.
Davis Payne?
Davis Payne. There you go. He was 13 games. But
Jesus.
Yeah. But Montgomery's going to be here 4 or 5 more years. What you need to do is get the team to play better. And sometimes, as our old friend DeMarco Farr used to say, you got to shoot a hostage. And sometimes you got to get people's attention, you have to do something unexpected that nobody else sees coming. And there are things that you can do to get everybody jumping a little bit. I don't know what it is, whether it's taking a letter off of a player, a C or an A, or making a trade that nobody expects. But I think just to shake everybody up, just think of the movie where they shoot the hostage. I think that's to spur action. I think that's something that Doug Armstrong has to be considering right now. And it's hard to make a trade in October or November in the NHL, but he can go to somebody and make a deal. He can find a deal out there.
Do you have a specific movie you're referring to, or just the general trope?
Just a general trope.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So that was an old, I guess we mentioned Don James earlier. That was a Don James line, and he played, DeMarco did, for Don James. And that's what they said, like when a really good player would get benched because everybody else needed that little jump start, they would say, yeah, he just shot a hostage.
I really like that. Uncle Sam here on the chat. I'm waiting for a message to be sent to the team. Has there been a players only meeting? I don't think we've gotten that report yet from Jeremy Rutherford.
So I asked Kelly Chase one time about a time, and Kelly, you know what player he was. He wasn't the best player on the ice, but he played hard every time he was out there. And he had, because of that, the ability to hold others accountable. And one time after a loss, he went in and he slammed his stick. I thought it was against his locker. It was actually against Brett Hull's locker. And so there was a big stick tape stain above Hull's locker, and nobody ever cleaned it off. It just stayed there, kind of as a message to everybody else that, okay, Chaser was pissed and we aren't going to stand for this anymore. And he was able to hold other players accountable. Guys, I don't know who on this roster right now has it to hold other players accountable. Your captain's minus 10. So he can't go over to Jake Neighbors and say, hey, buddy, you got to pick it up. Jake Neighbors is probably too young to be able to do that. I don't know who Colton Parayko doesn't have that personality to do that. You can't have Justin Falk doing that. Robert Thomas isn't going to do that. I don't know who on this team has the personality and the wherewithal and the ability to hold other players on this team accountable. And I think it's a major problem because somebody's got to take a leadership role when things are going the way they're going right now. And from what I'm watching, and I'm not in the room, obviously, but from what I'm watching, it doesn't look like there's anybody sitting on the bench getting angry and getting mad. And I think that's something the Blues desperately need right now. The maddest guy on the bench is Jim Montgomery. And that's got to be a player at some point. A player has to step up and be that guy.
Well, I know a lot of people are mad in the fan base because I was watching the post game here on STL Sports Central, hosted by I believe it was Ethan Hannaford, and I'm blanking on who was the other host that day. But they were doing a fantastic job warding off some absolutely crazy angry comments from a lot of people. And one of the things that people were saying that sounded a lot like some of the Cardinals post games was the any kind of comment about this is just the 8th game of the season, so on and so forth, bother them. Because, and here's my thing. You're not right. Anyone who says it, putting it in that perspective, is not wrong. But at the same time, we have seen a Cardinals team that the last couple of years has, or 2 of the last 3 years has been close, but has just been just a little bit out of reach the entire season, late in the year, I should say. A Blues team that needed a record-setting win streak to get into the playoffs last year, and the year prior just barely missed getting into the playoffs by a couple games. So considering all of those situations that St. Louis fans have had to deal with, when they react and say, I don't care that it's the 8th game of the season, these ones matter just as much, because if they would have won the 8th game of the season or the 23rd game of the season for the Cardinals, they could have been in the playoffs. What do you respond? How would you respond to a fan saying, I don't want to hear excuses. I don't want to hear that it's just the 8th game of the season, because this game matters just as much as game 82 when you look at the playoff standings.
I said you only have 10 of these segments. You only, and you've already used one up, and you're in last place in your division, having used one of those 10 segments. So you only have 9 left. So no, you better get things going pretty quickly. Now, it's preposterous to compare the Blues' relative talent level to the Cardinals, to the other teams that are the most talented teams in their league. Not even close. The Blues have talent. There's no doubt about that. We've seen that. But it's a matter of getting that talent to play well, and they need to pick it up in a hurry. There's no doubt about it, because if you don't, this can get away from you in a big hurry. But I always like to, and this is something that Brian Sutter was good about. He actually did it in 5-game segments. I do it in 8-game segments. So coaches do it in different ways. But to me, what you do is, and there have been several other coaches, I think Hitch might have done the 8 games. He said, just look at it as 10 little 8-game seasons. And then the last 2 obviously are going to pop up. But 10 little 8-game seasons, and you want to be over 500 in each of those, and you'd like to dominate those. And the Blues have not taken advantage of what I think is a pretty good schedule in their first 8-game segment. So you need to have your players perform at a high level. No, this is inexcusable. This is not good. When you get hammered 5-0 in your opener on home ice, and then you allow 8 goals to Chicago on home ice, and then you blow a 4-0 lead to Detroit, and wherever that game is, unacceptable. No doubt about it.
And Montgomery in JR's latest piece on The Athletic, again, check that out if you haven't already. He talks about how, he expected them to have growing pains, but this is nothing compared to what they expected. Cole Bassett's left foot. When the system stumbles, the spark has to come from somebody who bleeds urgency. Right now, that's Neighbors. So I feel like Cole Bassett's left foot does not think the Blues have a very good chance of coming away with a win in Pittsburgh tonight.
Probably not. No.
If that's your thought process, go with your heart and find the DraftKings line on today's Blues game and just go with anything Penguins related, because no Jake Neighbors, no Robert Thomas.
Yeah. And Thomas obviously is a big loss too, because
day-to-day for both.
He's your best offensive player. But you look at the Penguins, and granted, they have 13 points, but they aren't the team that they have been in the past.
They were projected by The Athletic as one of the bottom 5 teams in the NHL this year. So, is this fake? Does it, is this one of those things where, can it crack for a game and you can get a win that you're not expecting to because of how they started? I don't think that's completely out of the realm of possibility. And heck, maybe you get a little bit of the Penguins coming in light against a backup goalie that they see as vulnerable because of how Hofer's been playing, and they get a little cocky, and we've seen how that can bite teams in the ass.
So, and they played 9 games. Malkin has 14 points. Crosby has 6 goals. He has 11 points. Raquel has 3 and 5 for 8. They've got Erik Karlsson has 6 assists in his 9 games. So they've had some good things happen in Pittsburgh, and it's definitely not a walkover for the Blues. And I'm with The Athletic, and I'm with you. I didn't think that their talent level was enough for them to be 6-2-1 at this point, but Pittsburgh is pretty darn good.
Yeah, and listen, yes, it's just a day-to-day injury, but if he's not there tonight, that's all I'm saying, Cole Bass. I'm not saying give up on the Blues. I'm saying if he's not there tonight, and that's your thought on the system stumbling and needing somebody like Jake Neighbors. Here's the thing is, I'm kind of excited for tonight's game because getting rid of some skill guys, getting some, not necessarily heavies, but getting some bigger dudes in who are just going to skate around and hit people, maybe that can get a little juice going back in and get you a gritty game, get gritty, gutty win.
Yeah. By the way, I will add one other thing to the comment I made about the people that can hold other players accountable. And maybe this player isn't the guy that does it from a vocal standpoint. But what did we say on the day they traded Bolduc? That they were losing an awful lot of grit and sandpaper. And I'm not seeing it from this team. I don't think there's a top 9 forward on this team that this year to this point has presented grit and sandpaper. Neighbors would be the closest thing, but I will not go there. Not to the level that Bolduc did once he got rolling last year. So that trade with his performance and what he brings to the table, as opposed to what Logan Mailloux is bringing to the table right now, and it's very early. Armstrong said you got to wait 200 games for a defenseman. That being said, at the moment, after 8 games, don't you think that trade looks like a disaster?
It does, but the problem is it's not a trade you ever going to be able to evaluate after 8 games, and that's the thing. And that's one of those ones we can't think results. Mm-hmm. We got to think process. Doesn't matter that they're the same draft year. Positional factors, growth factors. Everybody grows differently. All these things. The cost. The cost of bringing in right-handed defensemen who can be the quarterback of a power play. If you want to kind of know why the Blues are maybe trying to get ahead of that cost, go back and read some of the articles about the Noah Dobson trade attempts by the Blues and listen to what they were asking for Noah Dobson. Look what they got for Noah Dobson. Look what the Blues were balking at. And then maybe you can see why are they giving up potentially a really high-end third-line wing for Logan Mailloux. It's because the ceiling of these players is different. Zach Bolduc can be a great 20-goal scorer, but he's never going to be a number 1 right winger for you in the NHL. If Logan Mailloux develops the way he's supposed to, he can quarterback your power play while being your number 1 right defenseman. That potential changes things. So yes, it is a loss right now. But at no point was this trade going to be a win 8 games in. So it would be foolish to react to it.
Yeah. And Dobson, by the way, a goal and 4 assists in 10 games for Montreal. And Bolduc, who I think he had 3 goals in his first 2 games. He's got 4 now. 4 goals, 2 assists, 6 points. He's a -1 in 10 games, and he's only playing 13 minutes a game.
Cole Bass's left foot. The Blues need a traditional enforcer. Here's the issue with that.
There are none.
There are none. And one of the Blues' biggest problems, in my opinion, is that some the top line players are playing too many minutes. Well, if you put a guy on your 4th line just to take penalties, your other players are going to keep having to play more minutes. And so the issue there is having to kill penalties and things like that sucks and tires you out. So as much as I understand your thought process, literally one of the things the Blues are bad at right now is not tiring out their best players, and I don't want to deal with that more by having an enforcer suck up those minutes.
Ryan Reeves is still bouncing around.
He is still bouncing around,
getting in some fights and stuff. So,
although I feel like he'd be insulted, he's still bashing around. That might be a better way.
Yeah, there you go. And I just don't think the Blues have that guy in their organization at all. I don't know that there's a guy that could come up and you'd say, okay, well, that is the Twist or the Chase or the Ewan or the Durbano or whoever. There's not that. I don't think that guy exists in the league anymore.
I don't need a fighter, Randy. What I need after watching that Mammoth game, by the way, which is going to be the final time that I step inside Enterprise for a very long time.
Yeah.
Thank you, by the way, to the St. Louis Blues. Had a pretty solid entree to about a quarter of the games this year and pretty good seats. Thanks to my lovely girlfriend. But the Blues are like 1-10 in the last 11 games of me and Enterprise. So guess who isn't going to Enterprise anymore for Blues homes games? That's me. So thanks on that one, St. Louis Blues, for killing my ability to go enjoy you live at the Enterprise Center. Thanks a lot on that one. But anyhow, as I'm there watching my last Blues game for a long time against the Mammoth, I don't need fights. I just need somebody who's willing to take the freaking body. The amount of times that guys are just trying to take the puck against the walls, just use the wall. Like this is like a basketball thing to me. Use the wall as another defender, except in this case, less as an extra defender and more as like a way to punish that player. Like take the body. Like I just need Texier and Toropchenko just hammering dudes in open ice. I don't care about fights. Lay the wood in the open play legally, and that's all I need when we talk about a toughness factor from this team. I don't care about fighting. I need people hitting. Take the body. Do not just take the puck.
When I have not won at home, when I'm 0-3-1 on home ice, I've lost 5-0 to Minnesota. I've lost 8-3 to Chicago. I did beat Dallas here, so I guess I have won a game. So
Okay,
yeah,
there you go.
So, yeah. So
Again,
but then I lost to the Kings and I lost to Utah. Okay, so I've got one win on home ice. I'm 1-3-1. Give me fights. Entertain me somehow. Right? I need to be entertained. I'm paying a lot of money.
That's fair.
So that's what I want.
I mean, just the amount of times like a Mammoth player would have the puck up against the boards, and instead of just taking him out and collecting the puck in the aftermath, they would go stick first onto the puck.
Mm-hmm.
And almost every time it seemed like the Mammoth were able to get the puck up the boards and start something instead of just taking him into the wall. Again, don't do more than 3 steps. We don't need charging penalties. We just talked about that. Legal hits to set a tone is really what the Blues have been missing.
Okay, so maybe this will help for tomorrow. Back in the day, this is 2009, 2010. We started this little holiday, an unofficial holiday.
Oh, yes, here we go.
And it was called Punch a Red Wing Fan in the Face Day.
We needed that on Saturday.
Chat in if you have ever celebrated or considered celebrating Punch a Red Wing Fan in the Face Day. So back in the day, when the Red Wings were good, their fans would travel all over the place and take over buildings. And I suggested,
Sounds
and
like
I
a
thought it was
terrorist group.
reasonable.
They'd take over buildings.
Yeah, they did. That's what they did. And I suggested that you just go up and grab a Red Wing fan by the scruff of their neck and just boom, pop them one right in the kisser, just once. And if you knock them out, so be it.
If you say boop, it's kind of cute.
Yeah, it did. Boop. And it was a very popular holiday for many years here in St. Louis until Detroit moved to the other conference, and then they became bad and their fans didn't show up as much. But maybe, just maybe, if for the Tuesday night game against the Red Wings, we resurrect Punch a Red Wing Fan in the Face Day just for this one time. And you members of St. Louis law enforcement, and you know who you are, if you could just acquiesce a little bit to the wishes of the Blues fans that would like to do this, we would appreciate it. Let's try this just once and see if maybe it can fire up the squad. I remember Matthew walking into the building one time, and it was Punch a Red Wing Fan in the Face Day. So, and we would play the Red Wings 2 or 3 times at home and 2 or 3 times on the road. I remember walking in one time, and one of the men in blue, one of the fine members of the St. Louis law enforcement community, was behind me as I was walking in and said, "Hey, buddy, we got you." So, and there were all kinds of Red Wings fans around. So it was good to know.
You know what they call that?
What?
Home ice advantage.
That's home ice advantage right there. So let's just resurrect it for one day and see if maybe that can fire up our St. Louis Blues.
Randy, you can't put a bounty on a man.
I just did. Okay, another story. Okay, this is playoffs. This is Chicago. The guy who sadly had to retire because of an illness from the Blackhawks. I will get the name for you momentarily. Oh man, it's a winger forward who was there. Anyway, he was all over the place. He was running people. He was a jerk. And so we were doing our radio show over at Patios before a Blues playoff game. And I said on the air, I said, I got $100 of my own money for any Blues player that'll knock that creep out of the game. And so we started getting texts. We started getting texts from people that said, "Yeah, I'm in. I'll contribute." And people were, saying, "Yeah, how do I contribute?" So we had a bunch of money raised. We were just going to give it to charity. And so my boss, John Kioski at 101, still the general manager over there, calls me up on my phone during a break, and he says, "You can't put a bounty on a man's head." I was thinking we're playing out the scene from Slapshot. And I said, "I just did." And I clicked and hung up on him. Just like Reg Dunlop did in Slapshot. And so then he calls back. He said, "Did you just hang up on me?" And I said, "Yeah, isn't that what they did in Slapshot?" And he said, "No, I mean this. You cannot put a bounty on a man's head." And I said, "Okay." He said, "Just make an apology and don't do it anymore." So I had to come back. It was Brian Bickle, by the way.
Brian Bickle.
I said, "I got $100 of my own money for any Blues player that will take that creep Brian Bickle out of the game."
Oh man.
And yeah, so
love
I
that story.
got in trouble, and I thought we were channeling, me and my boss were channeling our inner slap shot for this particular game, but no, that wasn't it. And then it was unbelievable that the Blackhawk fans started getting a hold of it and talking about how unpatriotic I was and how mean I was and stuff like that.
Unpatriotic. Didn't they root for a bunch of commies in the 90s?
No, this is Chicago.
Oh, okay, Chicago.
But
sorry.
they do yell and scream throughout the entire national anthem. So how patriotic is that?
We scream at the end of it.
Yeah. Blues.
This is a rough one. Cole Bass's left foot.
Tell me if you do this. And the home of the Blues.
Braves.
I even do that at the Muni.
Do you really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I don't even do it at Blues games. I'm the hard other one. I say home of the Brave. If I'm going to sing the national anthem, I'm going to sing it right.
If I were to sing the anthem at a Blues game, and I don't think I will ever be invited, I would do Home of the Blues.
Good for you. This is unbelievable what's happening right now. I'm wearing my Yzerman jersey, and it's not just repping the Wings. It's repping accountability, clutch DNA, and the kind of leadership the Blues wish they had right now. Oh, God bless America. How's he doing as the GM?
Stellar. You know, it took me a long time to warm up to Jay Bowmeister because he wore number 19 in honor of Steve Yzerman.
Ooh, that is rough.
Yeah.
You eventually got there, though.
I got there, but
that shows a lot of growth by you. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm that grown up.
It's like you regretted it. It's like you regretted forgiving Jay Bowmeister his jersey number.
Totally. And you know what else I hate? Is I hate giving Yzerman credit for that damn shot in 96. So one time during the pandemic when we don't have sports, on a Sunday morning, I get a text from Joe Buck. He says, hey, Blues Red Wings game 7 double overtime on NHL Network right now. So I turn it on. And we're kind of texting back and forth watching because you forget a lot about what happened that long ago. And man, then he hits that shot. And that shot was like an unbelievable shot. It was the only shot that would have scored against John Casey over the shoulder. It was an unbelievable shot, and I'll give him credit for that. It was a great shot.
Right. I think we did this last year, but I forgot where he put it. Did you put 1.7 this past summer over any of those moments from the 90s as the worst one you ever, or does Yzerman or
well, I think Yzerman was worse for me because I thought that team was going to win a Stanley Cup. I mean, that team.
That's why. Yeah,
that team had,
that makes sense.
So you could have had Tikkanen or Anderson at left wing, Hall of Fame. Gretzky at center, Hall of Fame. Hull at right wing, Hall of Fame. Defense pairing, Pronger and McInnes, Hall of Fame. Goalie, Fuhrer, Hall of Fame. That was a super team.
Okay, same thing then. With a little bit of reflection now, which goalie injury bothers you more? Kyprios laying on Fuhrer or Kadri and Binnington?
Yeah, it was Fuhrer because I think that team had a chance to win it all. And I really think that if Fuhrer would have been healthy, it might have changed the entire future of Gretzky in St. Louis.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if he wins one, I mean, everything, why would he leave?
Yeah. By the way, one other thing, I want you guys to weigh in. Tonight is the anniversary of Game 6 of the 2011 World Series. David Freese, triple in the 9th, home run in the 11th. We will see you tomorrow night. Where were you when Freese hit that home run? Where were you?
I was on the third floor of what was technically the fraternity house at the time. And I remember exactly the point. I could walk to the place I was standing, like relative to where it was 3 floors up right now. If you dropped me off in Columbia, Missouri, really? I could get there and I could stand exactly where I was standing. I know exactly, like in my mind's eye, I can walk up the back stairs of the apartment, walk into the apartment, make a left into the apartment, walk into the room, and get my spot right where I was standing in front of the couch and where I was sitting for that entire game. Because I'll just never be able to forget it, because I remember Hamilton hits his home run,
Mhm.
and we all immediately sit down in dejection.
Yep.
And then the Cardinals come up the next inning, and it's all like, stand back up. Fine, well, stand back up. We were standing up when Freese hit his home run. When Freese hit the triple, stand up again. We can do this again, and then the home run happens. So yeah, I'll never forget the exact spot I was standing in Columbia, Missouri, just off 5th and Turner.
So I had agreed to do a post game on Channel 5 that night. And so
Awesome.
with the Cardinals down 7-5 in the ninth, I walked from the ballpark to Channel 5, short walk.
Yeah.
During the time I was walking, right as I walked in the door, Freese hits the triple and ties the game at 7-7. So I watched the 10th and the 11th, the home run, in the sports office at Channel 5. And then I go on with Mike Bush, and I must have been on for a half hour. It was unbelievable because everybody else is doing work and going crazy and everything. I don't think anybody was watching us. Well, they were watching Mike Bush, but that's where I was. I was to watch that home run. I was in the sports office at Channel 5.
That's a good place to do it.
Yeah.
And because so like
Larry Thornton was jumping like a madman.
I'm at Mizzou, and so obviously the overwhelming majority of people in the building are Cardinals fans. And I remember jumping over the couch, running across the hall into the other the room across the hall. And the president of our fraternity, a man named Ryan Beckendorf, who is a fantastic human being and a great Cardinals fan. I remember running into the room and just like jumping into him and being like, this is the greatest thing we're ever going to see.
Yep.
And to that point, I think I was correct, because I think to this day that is still the greatest sporting day of my entire life. And honestly, I don't know if it comes that much closer.
How about Cole Bassett's left foot? I was in Paris, missed the complete series.
That's
October 27th isn't a date, it's a monument. So yeah, it should be. Ghostface Gaming. I was in my bedroom watching the game in bed when Freese hit it. I had to go to work early, but I got hyped up and couldn't sleep at all that night, Randy. Yeah, I was the exact same way. I couldn't sleep at all either.
The other one from that World Series that I'll never forget is I'm walking back from the Panera that was downtown. It's gone now. The Panera that was downtown Columbia. I lived on campus in the fraternity house, so I was able to walk to and from work really easily. I'm walking back to the fraternity house. I get back. I walk inside, and as I walk inside, Pools hits a home run. I change. I jump through the shower. I'm listening to the game. I get out of the shower. Pools hits a second home run. I walk into my friend's apartment next door a few minutes later, and as soon as I open the door, they scream, "Get out! Get out! You weren't here yet. Get out!" And so I go back into my room, and alone I watch Pools hit the third home run. That's because awesome. My friends were like, "You weren't here for the first two. Go away!" Yeah. And sure as hell, they hit the third home run. And God, yeah, that's 2011 was incredible.
That was an amazing time.
And again, like all those moments, like I remember it was in the same third floor in a slightly different spot, just a month earlier, when we had game 162, an entire thing with the Red Sox and the Orioles and the Rays and all the craziness that was happening because the Braves had fallen apart and the Cardinals had gone on the run. I remember where I was sitting for game 162. I remember where I was for what was it, game 5? Was it game 5 of the NLCS against the Phillies?
Yeah,
Carpenter. Holiday and Carpenter, all those moments are indelibly burned into my memory.
Can we get the highlight? Can people listen to the highlight? Are we allowed to do that?
I can't get it up. Yeah, we can get it up tomorrow.
Okay, good.
I'm gonna do it today.
You'll hear it. Just find it on YouTube after the show is over, because also that season, and Joe Buck wrote this in his book, that he had a severe injury to his vocal cords because he was getting hair implants. He was getting hair plugs. And so if you listen, you'll hear that his voice isn't as strong as it was before or as strong as it's been since, because during that season, he had that problem. So when the triple happens, the voice kind of breaks a little bit, and then not as powerful as he would have liked it to have been for the home run, but just truly an amazing thing.
I mean, even just like the split second moment, I feel like I can remember the moment, like, because it felt like time froze. Because like in the moment, you could see that Nelson Cruz did not have the read he needed to make the play. Like as the ball's in the air, you're like, oh, okay, it's a little high, might be a can of corn. And then they zoom in and you're like, oh, he doesn't have the read on this ball. And I remember like this like time slowing down and it hitting the wall and being like, this is the greatest thing ever. And then obviously again, we're so down in the dumps for the Hamilton home run. Berkman gets his hit. And then of course Freese sends it away. Just God, I love that. I loved those 2 months so much.
That was a great time in St. Louis. And 14 years ago tonight, David Freese hit that momentous home run. And then the next night, obviously, 14 years ago tomorrow, the Cardinals win Game 7 behind Chris Carpenter. We've got World Series Game 3 tonight, Doyers and the Blue Jays. I think this is the Blue Jays' last best chance to get a win to send this thing back to Toronto. I think you can get Glasnow out of the game and get to that bullpen. I don't think you're going to get in the next game. I don't think you're going to get Ohtani out of the game, or it doesn't seem like you're going to get Yamamoto out of the game in any, or Snell in his next start. He would start Wednesday for the Dodgers. I think it's going to be hard for Toronto after Glasnow tonight to get into that Dodger bullpen. So I hope that they can get a win tonight and at least send it back to Toronto.
But at the same time, it's October 27th. And a St. Louis boys on the mound for the Blue Jays. Max Scherzer, the first player to ever start a World Series game for 4 different franchises. He's on the mound for the Blue Jays. That would be got it. Now with all this talking about Game 6, I hope the St. Louis kid absolutely knocks it out.
Did you hear when Schneider's discussion about when he came out to the mound for Scherzer in the NL was in the ALDS, right? In the division series?
Thought he was going to kill him.
Yeah. He said he was glaring at me with both of those different colored eyes.
His heterochromia is pronounced. I saw a shot of it today. While I was like, they just had they were like, because this could be Max Scherzer's last start in Major League Baseball, and just a shot of him over the railing of the dugout. I'm like, God, that guy's a psychopath.
He only adopts dogs that have that.
I love that too.
He'll only adopt dogs that has a blue eye and a brown eye. Pretty fun.
That sounds like something from a children's story.
Yeah. Hey, tomorrow we're looking forward to talking to our buddy Jim Thomas. He's got a new book out about the St. Louis Blues, the history of the St. Louis Blues. Of course, Jimmy T covered Mizzou for a long time. He covered the Rams the entire time they were here in St. Louis. And then when the Rams left, he took over the Blues beat. So it'll be great to have Jimmy in studio with us.
And you guys will all get the answer to this trivia question, which I guarantee you, I'm not going to give you the answer before we go off. You'll have to wait until we listen to Jimmy Thomas tomorrow. But I guarantee you will get this question wrong, which is, how many professional hockey teams played in St. Louis before the Blues?
Oh, okay.
I guarantee you most of the people listening to this will get this wrong. We'll get the answer tomorrow with Jimmy Thomas.
All right. Sounds good. I like it. All right. Great job by you as always, sir.
You killed it as
thanks
well.
to Wilson for getting us on the air. Thanks to you for being a part of the show. And we are brought to you by DraftKings here at STL Sports Central. We will see you tomorrow at 3.